Welcome to How to Write an eBook. I'm Dante St James. We're taking you through this particular session today. I'll just get a little bit of light going so you can actually see where I am on the screen. And please do be aware that the details of the chat and our Q&A section are open. So if you've got questions along the way that you'd like to ask, please don't be afraid to do so. I'd love to hear what questions you've got as we're going along. Just also bearing in mind that we're not going to be looking at particular tools that we're going to be going into to create these new books. But what we will do is show you through some of the ideas of how to create an ebook, how to go about the thinking of creating your own ebook, both from a marketing point of view and also considering going through it as an ebook of a longer format, I suppose, if you're trying to write something that's a little bit more meaty and you want to use it for publishing through things like Amazon or Kindle or any of those sort of systems where you can have your book published and then sold in a bookstore as well. So let's get underway. This is brought to you by a Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, administered in WA by Business Station, by Regional Development Australia Brisbane in Queensland, and by Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. This also will be available through YouTube a little bit later on this evening and in a couple of days' time through the Business Station YouTube channel and through my own Dante St James YouTube channel as well. Great quote here from Professor Claire McLaren. My words just aren't working today. Professor Claire McLaughlin from the Victorian Professor of Early Childhood Education at the Fed University in Victoria, saying it's only we oldies that call them ebooks. Kids these days only call them books. That's really cool. I like that. What we're going to cover today is what an ebook is and what an ebook absolutely is not. Why you should be producing an ebook. You know, what are some of the ideas that may come about for why you may want to do that. And also the difference between free and paid ebooks. So you might want to go down the path of just giving them as a part of your your sales funnel, for instance, if you're taking email addresses to connect them through to a sales process, how to decide between short format and long format. So that might depend on what your objective is, whether it's something for marketing or whether you're going down the path of an actual paid book that you want to put a lot of time and effort into. We look at mass and limited distribution and some of the variations of that, and some really smart ideas on how you may want to use your ebook in the future as well. My name is Dante St James. If you haven't met me before, I work with Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory, part of Google's Digital Springboard program, and Facebook Australia's Boost with Facebook program as well, which I get to do a lot of digital marketing help for small businesses, not-for-profits, and community groups right around Australia. My education is from the Chartered Institute of Marketing, Western Sydney University, the University of New South Wales, TAFE New South Wales, and I've done a whole lot of extra things all over the place when it comes to digital tools and marketing as well. So first up, this is going to be a nice, fast, quick, get in, get out kind of webinar for you. As I said before, please, if you do have questions, ask them in the chat window or the Q&A. If you're watching this on YouTube though, which is none of you who are live on the call right now, the comments can go below and you can leave a comment and I can get back to those at another future date. So an ebook is something in the marketing world that can be downloaded from your website or a landing page or maybe a social media platform, maybe like a link from a Facebook page. It could come from your Twitter profile. It could come from posts on Google My Business, anything like that. It's usually in a shorter format. So you're looking about something that's 5-6 pages, maybe no more than about 12 when it comes to something which is a free download that gives some general purpose information rather than things that go really way out there. It's also related to what you do, what your expertise is, what you're really good at. It's always related to what your business carries out. So if you're a plumber, you write something about plumbing, obviously. If you are a consultant in decluttering, then you write some kind of ebook that's on the topic of decluttering. But an ebook can also be something which is a bit more of a a longer format thing. Now we're looking more at the marketing style of ebook here, the kind of ebook that you would give out as a free incentive to give someone to give you your email address. But there are other formats. There's a format of writing a full novel, if that's what you're after doing. You can write large non-fiction books as well, so they can be complete guides. I'm in the middle of writing my very first marketing ebook for myself, with all of my marketing background and marketing experience into it. So I'm going through this process right now myself. So I can certainly sympathize with not knowing where to start, because it can be a bit of a hard one. But looking at things like case studies are really, really good, and reports are really good for putting in an ebook format, as are things like infographics. So remember when infographics were all the rage around about 5 years ago, when everything was, oh, get this free infographic to stick up on your fridge by giving me your email address. We don't see so many of them anymore, but infographics are a format, I guess, of ebook. They're usually just one sheet rather than 4, 5, 12 pages or something. But if we're looking at something which is going to be much, much longer, then we look forward to creating an ebook that is more of a, the kind of book you buy in a bookstore, but the digital version of it. We'll cover some of those formats very shortly, but here's a bit of an idea of what some marketing ebooks are going to look like. One on the left is a client of mine built his ebook and created it as a PDF and made a very convincing looking cover on it. And it's all about, why you should get a Bali hut or an outdoor gazebo in your backyard. And that's because that's what his business does. They create gazebos and outdoor spaces for families to connect and enjoy the space, often around pools, but not always. Sometimes around a spa, sometimes it's over a spa. That's what he does. And what he wanted to do was create a book, an ebook that's around that, how you can create space for family to get back into in-person connection again, rather than just into, technology and phones all the time. Others are like HubSpot, who produces tons and tons of ebooks. They've got that 22 SEO myths that you should leave behind. HubSpot also creating the state of customer service in 2020. So a lot of these are very much informational sheets of no more than between 15 and 30 pages, produced by companies that do a lot of this. They produce a lot of ebooks. That's something, it's a core part of their marketing machine. Your beginner's guides to online marketing, your content marketers playbooks. All of these things are ways of using an ebook as part of a sales funnel. Anthony, who created the one about the Bali huts and gazebos, wants you to buy a Bali hut or a gazebo from him. HubSpot wants you to buy their software, so they'll bring you in through various funnels with about 30 different ebooks that they offer on different topics that give you some kind of idea that they are experts in this thing and that you can better handle all those things by doing it with software that they provide. And you've also got your online marketing is, I guess, someone who wants to give you a system that they can help you out with your online marketing with. And then lead generation is obviously from a service that provides lead generation services for you. So some of these things are very much, well, pretty much all of these are part of a sales funnel. If you don't know what a sales funnel is, it's pretty much where you have a hook that gets people in with something for free. So you give them something that they're interested about in exchange for their contact details, usually just their email address. That email address then becomes the way for you to stay in contact with those people. When you stay in contact with those people, you can what they call nurture those leads along your funnel. So if you imagine at the very top of the funnel, it's very wide. Lots of people come in because they have an interest in your free thing. Secondly, if it's able for you to get hold of their email addresses, then you're able to bring them further down that sales funnel to a point where they can then be offered a different offer, which is a lot more, it might be not your number one offer, which might be to sell a complete Bali hut for the backyard. It might be, here's a way for you to learn how to make your own. And then the final step will be, okay, this is where your book, my throat's really dry today. The book is going to be the part that's going to be the big offer, the big deal. And not all those people at the top of the funnel are going to make it all the way down to the point where they're going to buy that big ticket item. So your ebook is sitting around about the top or middle of the funnel where people are still getting something for free. Laura's just asking if it's going to be recording. Yes, it will be. It'll be available in about 2 days' time through Business Station's YouTube channel. Just look for this particular video at Business Station on YouTube. So that's what we look at as the basics of what a sales funnel is and how you would use an ebook as part of that. But why would you write an ebook? What's the purpose of doing that? It seems like a lot of work to go to. If you're creating something, can be done through just creating ads on Facebook, for instance. Well, the reason why people create ebooks is quite often because an ebook provides an extra piece of authority or credibility, if you put it that way, above just simply sharing a little bit of information on Facebook. If you've gone to the trouble and you have the expertise to be able to fill out, 12 pages of data or 30 pages. Oh, excuse me, it's getting really warm in this room and it makes me very, very yawnish. So I'll just turn on the aircon a little bit. Thank you for that. What it allows you to do is to show people your expertise, show people that you know what you're talking about. If you show them that you know all the information and you know how to put it into a context that they'll understand, they'll feel a lot better about you. And that creates what we then have as the trust factor, which is the second point on the screen. The trust factor is then that if you have expertise and you're showing that you actually can relate to me, I feel naturally connected to you. I feel naturally in a trust position with you. And that will then lead to more traffic back to your website when a person needs what it is you're offering. So if you're doing a sales funnel that contains your expertise about how to better look after your skin and to use this specific skincare products, you're not selling the skincare products at this stage. What you're doing is saying, this is how you can better look after your skin. And here's all the advantages of looking after your skin a whole lot better. And you may want to mention that there's certain products that are very good for assisting with that later on. But the point of the ebook is to get people knowing that you know what you're talking about when it comes to skincare or cosmetics or scented candles or coaching in the particular niche that you're in or the particular healing modality that you work in as well. What you're trying to do is create credibility that people will go, yeah, this person, she knows what she's talking about. Trying to create that trust where you go, yeah, I feel like I'm really connected with him, like I can trust him because not only does he know what he's doing, but he's got a track record of showing what he's doing. And you want to get that extra traffic as well. Because let's face it, the traffic is what's going to create those sales for you. So we now know why we may want to write an ebook, right? That's a great start. Where we're going to move on to now is things like repurposing. Now, repurposing allows you to use lots and lots of things that you've already done in the past and put it into an ebook. So for instance, if you've been writing a whole stack of blog posts, a whole stack of posts on Facebook or on Instagram, all those pieces of information can form some kind of narrative or some kind of pattern or some kind of a story that you can produce that you can then repurpose into something like an ebook. Quite often, people create ebooks just because they've got this great big backlog of information that they've been sharing all over social media, and they want to be able to do something more with it. And it makes so much sense. If you're someone who writes a blog a week, you've got 52 pieces of information in your website by the end of the year. You've got 104 pieces of information by the end of 2 years. Imagine how many you got in 5 years. That's more than enough to fill a book with. So if you're able to write on that one topic in such depth that you've written all of these different chapters, all of these different blogs, then you'll know for sure that you've got enough to fill a book with. So repurposing is another area where people might want to write an ebook. It's also a good way to refresh knowledge. So for instance, if you produced an ebook in the past, it's very easy for you to update that ebook with fresh knowledge and fresh information to rebuild that and put it back out to the public again. If you produced a hardcover book, which is, something which is printed out, I don't have any books really close by me here, but you've got something which has been printed out, you can't just update that without having to reprint it, resell it, redistribute it, and someone has to rebuy it again. With an ebook, you've got the ability to be able to go, here's edition number 1. You don't have to pay any more for this because you've already got edition 0.9. And it helps you to grow a list. Ebooks are a great way of attracting people to give you their email address and their contact details. When you get their contact details through, that allows you then to begin a bit of a relationship with them. You can send them something that's more of a hook offer, that you want to get some sort of, more value out of that particular contact than just giving them a free book. You may offer coaching services. You may offer in-person live workshops if that's what you do as well. Or you might have an in-store presence. So for instance, your own store in the local shopping center or on the main street, where you'd like to be able to draw them in to become part of, your real life sales funnel. So having an ebook out there does achieve a lot, but I would say that the ones that most people will do this for is to grow some sort of credibility or authority, and also to repurpose a whole lot of that information they've been working hard on in the past. Do not fret if you don't have 200 blog posts already that you can repurpose into an ebook. It doesn't matter. An ebook does not have to be the length of 300 pages like a novel. It can be something so much shorter, something short enough for you to be able to put in 10 to 12 pages. And that would include having diagrams and illustrations and photos in there as well. An ebook does not have to be a saga. In most cases, it's going to be a very short publication of no more than about 5 or 6 to 10 or 12 pages. Oh, the whole body's just playing up today for me. Must be getting old. So now we split it between the idea of free ebooks and paid ebooks. And when we look at free ebooks, that's something which is not going to cost anyone anything apart from maybe their email address. You would look at things that are either short or long. You may offer a very long-winded article that goes on for 50 pages and produces a lot of in-depth information. Or it could be something that's as short as 2 pages. Look, the minimum size you're going to have for an ebook is generally about 2 pages. You might want to do it as a PDF that's very easily stored on your web server and on your website, or easy to download through cloud services as well. Or you might want to put it on a thing like SlideShare. SlideShare is a free service where you can put up things like ebooks and presentations to share with other people out there in the world. It can be a really positive way to create a lot of search engine optimization, extra links back to your website. We all want a little bit of that. And it can be a great way to be informative to the public. Again, showing your expertise so that people can understand what it is you're doing about. And just like this webinar, which is not a very specific thing, it's not where we're going to, how to write an ebook in this particular piece of software for this particular niche. It's more broad stroke. So a free ebook can be quite generalized. It can give big pieces of information and statistics and the bigger picture of attacking something like funding your business ideas, how to have a more pleasant home and office environment, how to get on better with your kids, anything that you happen to specialize in your particular business. It's not super specific, because you might, to get super specific on any particular realm often requires that someone goes so far as writing a thesis, and having written a ton of those in my life. They're hard and they're very long and they're very, very detailed and complicated. What your general free ebook is going to be very simple to understand, actionable in that it gives you some value. You walk away and going, oh yes, I can do that. And it's very general in nature, broad stroke, not fine detail. Think of it that way. Your paid ebooks tend to be a little bit of a longer format because it's taken you a lot of effort and time to put them together. I'm not talking about, 3 hours with, with using Canva. I'm talking about hundreds of hours put into developing a story, developing characters, developing and studying on a particular topic. It's broken up into chapters. So you're breaking it up a lot because it's very, very long. It's highly actionable. The last major book, it was not that much of a book, was called Creating Your Story Brand. And it was a fantastic book, but it had to be broken up into about 8 chapters. Otherwise it became just this great big, huge chunk of words that made no sense to anyone unless we had the context about how to break it up. And it was very detailed in the particular topic it was covered, which is all about brand and developing brand in a business and the messaging that comes around that as you go and say, well, here's my brand. How do I speak about that? So a longer, more paid ebook is going to be very, very niche. It's going to be very, very specific for a very, very specific audience. Unless, of course, you're writing, the next Harry Potter sequel, or you're writing the next Star Wars fan fiction, where it is going to be the length of an actual literal novel, then we're talking about something that's very much a niche for a very particular kind of person who's looking for a very particular kind of information. When it comes to choosing a topic, however, on writing a book, this may seem a little harder than it sounds, because while you go, well, yes, I run a counseling business, I'm a counselor, then you might go, well, I'm going to write about counseling. The problem is, though, that there needs to be some kind of hook in it, particularly in what you're going to talk about and how you're going to offer some kind of value to someone. Just by saying, here's my book about counseling, it needs to be something that's a little bit more specific, that's grabby, and it's going to make someone go, yes, that's a piece of information I would like to know, or yes, that's a piece of information that I don't have right now, or I'd like to know, or here's something that I would actually ask directly when I'm typing a query or a question or some kind of statement into Google to get an answer. Do you answer a question that someone has? So how you choose a topic is all around, what do you know? What are you an expert at? What is your expertise? What's the thing that's your superpower? Now, you may be someone who is an office administrator, and you may have a particular superpower for Microsoft Excel. This could be an ideal topic for you to write about, because it's something you do every day. It's something you're very good at. You've been finding all sorts of ways around, the long-winded ways of often doing things in Microsoft products. You will know what the keystrokes are. You'll know what the macros are. You'll know what the auto sums and the formulas are. You'll know every little thing inside out about this particular topic. So that could be something you could write about, right? But you don't have to be a big expert. You don't have to have a PhD in something to write a book about something. I've read some books and I go, wow, I could have written a better book than that. And you can probably too. All you have to do is be like a primary school teacher, which is be one page ahead of your students. You don't have to be the expert to everybody about your topic. You don't have to be an expert to everybody at every level of health and well-being if you're just writing to a very specific audience. We get afraid of writing ebooks simply because we think we have to be, we have that imposter syndrome. We go, well, who the hell do I think I am? Who do I think I am writing this book for a bunch of people like I'm some kind of expert? You actually are an expert in something. I'm a perfect example of this because I'm here on a webinar with you talking about ebooks. Now, I've written a ton of them for clients. I'm writing some of them for myself right now. So in that sense, I'm probably an expert compared to those who have never, ever tried to write an ebook. But I'm not an expert when it comes to, someone who's written 170 ebooks that are all long format and are about, surgical procedures when it comes to neurosurgery. I am not an expert in any of that, but I can offer some information that's a little bit further along the trail than where you are right now. And as I continue to go along the trail, so too will you. And at some point after you've done your first ebook, you will become an expert in ebooks and can probably do a webinar just like this, or funnily enough, an ebook about writing ebooks, which is not as ridiculous as it sounds. There's a lot of people out there who've done that and done it very successfully as part of their sales process to get people to buy a service or a workshop or some kind of course that helps them to better create an ebook. So you don't have to be a PhD in a particular subject to write about it. You just have to be a few steps ahead of the majority of people who are wanting to actually find out the first steps of how to do that thing that you do. Another way of choosing a topic too is, what do you get asked a lot about? Is there a certain frequently asked set of questions that you will get that people are always asking you in your business? If you're selling indoor plants, for instance, are there a certain set of questions that you get asked about indoor plants? What the care is, what does semi-light, semi-sun, semi-shade mean? How much, just exactly how much shade or sun does this particular thing need? What is the, is it true that you will breathe better if you have indoor plants in your space where you sleep? Does having indoor plants help me sleep better? And if you want to know what frequently asked questions are about your business that you can't recall from what people have been asking you, go to Google and start typing in a question about it. Start typing in a question about indoor plants and see what the automated suggestions of questions are that come up. That will give you a great idea about the chapters and the content that you can write in that particular part of your ebook. So like I said, you don't have to be an expert like a PhD to write something like this. You just have to have a bit of knowledge in a particular area that people are asking questions about, either to you or on the big G, on the big Google, or in some space or some way where you are getting asked the same questions over and over again. I would add another point to that as well. Even though I've got those three, under that, what do you get asked a lot about? I would also then add in there what people should be asking about that particular topic that you're an expert at. So not just what you get asked about, but also what they should be asking you about. The things that people really should know before they start going into aromatherapy. The things that people should know before they start just simply buying shampoo bars from Lush Cosmetics instead of buying them from the local market. You know, what the content of anything with palm oil in it and how that might be bad for the environment. Whatever the particular topic is you're particularly knowledgeable about, think about what you get asked a lot about. And secondly, what people should be asking you a lot more than what they actually do. So some examples I've got here is very, very catchy little things such as life coaching, 10 actionable ways you can change your life right now. That is the formation. You can have one page for each tip. And that tips only have to be, here's the topic. Here's a little brief summary of it. And here's dot points about those ways you can change your life within that particular summary. It can be something digital. If you're someone who's going out there and wanting to get a web designer, what you need to know before you choose a web designer. That's the topic of an ebook I wrote quite a number of years ago that was trying to tell people that there's things you can do yourself that you don't necessarily need to get a web designer in for. But if you do get a web designer in, here's some questions they should be able to answer you very, very quickly off the top of their heads to prove that they're very good at what they do and they're going to be helpful for you. In retail, it might be choosing the right dress without your best friend being there. It might sound like a funny one, but it's actually really funny because you think of this, how often people won't buy clothing unless they've got someone else's trusted opinion there right next to them to tell them whether this is a good dress, a bad dress, a shirt that's going to fit them properly, whether that color looks good on them, or that famous question that nobody can answer correctly, which is, do I look fat in this? So think about that. If you're working in fashion, you've got a absolute mass of things you can write about in there to help people become better shoppers, to select colors right, to know what their shape is, to know what kind of cut of dress or cut of shirt that may work better for them, whether orange, bright high-vis orange is their color or not. Jury's very much out on that one. And it could be also to do with food and beverage. You know, something like the Bogan's Guide to Drinking Fancy Coffee at Fancy Coffee Shops. You can be really funny. You can actually pick a very, very specific niche. You think about, you know, the book, which is The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I've left the F word out of there because I don't want YouTube to ping this particular video. But The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, it was a book that was written in a funny way to get a not so funny message across, which is that caring too much about what people think of you is a foolish way to live. So it was one of those things which is written in a funny, catchy way like here, but it actually had a very serious message to give. You might have a similar message to give to that. If you work in counseling, neurolinguistic programming, if you're working in anything which is a life skill, a life coaching kind of course, you can write so many different things when it comes to an ebook that can help people out. So just like a regular book, an ebook, if it's more than a few pages, should be broken up into chapters or perhaps subject areas. So if you break it up, it means you're able to achieve a lot more because books are pretty overwhelming. So you need to break up all those text blocks with something a bit more than just more text. Breaking it up, like I've done on this particular this presentation, I've had to have colors and blocks and flowy stuff and pictures in there to help break up all these words, because otherwise it just becomes another death by PowerPoint session, right? This could very much be the formation of an ebook. I could take any one of these presentations and turn it into an ebook. Now that really opens up a lot of possibilities. Think about all the PowerPoint presentations you produce in your life and go, what if I turned each one of those into an ebook of some degree? They could be downloaded as a way of people working their way through a topic. I've got hundreds of these things I could turn into ebooks. It'd be really interesting to see if I can follow my own advice there. Books are very overwhelming and very long and very full of text, particularly with a lot of people who do have a lot of trouble with, keeping attention for long enough to be able to read all that. And also where they're not able to comprehend big blocks of text, such as conditions like dyslexia, for instance, where the text just doesn't make sense to them. So when you break your content up, you make it much easier for the eyes to cover off the main information. There's also the fact too that people cannot learn more than one thing at a time. You may think that we are very good at multitasking, and there's that whole thing that women are really, really good at and men are really, really bad at it. It's basically that nobody's really good at multitasking at all. Especially when you're dealing with, concepts of a lot of technical concepts or a lot of complicated concepts. Lots of text tend to get just scanned. If you ever, watched Kath and Kim, you see how Kath and Kim speed reads. So that's scanning. You're not truly taking in all the information. You're just taking in a word here, a word there, and you're letting your brain fill in the gaps for you. You're not actually learning what's being written there. You're learning an assumption that you've already got in your head of what might be written there based on a couple of words on every line. Formatted paragraphs are the ones that get read. When you format things out, when you break them into short paragraphs with gaps, then you're less likely to do that whole scan, and you'll actually read it because it looks like it's completely consumable. A big giant block of text is really hard on the eyes, and it just makes you almost go, oh my God, this is going to be so hard. I'm not going to learn all this stuff that's too difficult. Breaking it up into things like bullet points, breaking it up into very short paragraphs of no more than 2 or 3 sentences each, making your sentences be no more than 20 words in them, makes it look to the eye to go, yep, I feel like I can learn this. It looks simple enough. Unfortunately, academic books could take a leaf out of this because they don't do this very well at all. Quite often it's just about getting as much of a huge block of information across as you possibly can with the most complex words you can possibly use in a way that's designed to make it difficult for people to learn. Your ebook is not necessarily an academic work of art. It needs to be something that's very much easy for people to not be overwhelmed by, easy for people to interpret, and then easy for them to take that information and then do something positive and actionable afterwards so that they can be better at something they weren't great at before because of the expertise you've been able to deliver. You want it easy for people to put down and then come back to again, because not all of us are going to read even a 12-page ebook with lots of pictures all in one sitting. We may just go over the first 3 pages and go, oh, the kids are getting home from school, I've got to do something. Or it could be, oh no, I've got to quickly pop out and get the milk because we're out of milk. Or it could be, oh no, someone just called me on the phone, it's broken my concentration. Big blocks of text need bookmarks. When you've got an ebook, you don't have a bookmark. So you need to make it really easy for people to be able to pick up exactly where they were when they left off. So chapters and chapter headings do help you to do that. You're going to use chapters and chapter headings a lot more frequently in an ebook than you will in a regular book, simply because that's how we remember where we were. Remember, where's the big writing? That's what you're looking for. The big writing that I remember that I last got to was why use chapters. Great, that's what I'm looking for. There it is, why use chapters. So don't be afraid to have chapter marks and subtitles at a rate of 2 or 3 a page if you need to, especially if you've got lots of blocks of text. If you're more like a PowerPoint presentation like you're seeing here, and you've got not so many words in a block, then still use things like headings to help people to find it easy to get back to where they did leave off before. The greatest piece of advice I ever had when it came to writing is the same piece of advice that I have for blogging, for building a website, for learning something new, which is to take it one task at a time, because you're not quite at the level where you're Stephen King and you can just sit down and a book just literally flows out of you. Some people are just savants at this. They can just sit down and just write copy, or they can sit down and create a graphic in Canva. It's absolutely gorgeous, or they can sit down and just do things. I'm going to make an assumption that none of us are like this. I know I'm not like this. I'm good at some things, but it's certainly not coming naturally to me to be able to do this. So what I try to do is break up my tasks into very small bits that I can do one at a time, rather than sitting down and having to stress about the whole process from start to finish in one day. I say focus on one idea, because it's much easier for you to write about one idea at a time than to try and plan all those ideas out and write about them all. If you're trying to write about 5 different things in one day because you want to have a good big day of ebook writing, you're going to have trouble. You're going to struggle with this, because there's only so much that you can retain in your head for very quick usage. And you're probably going to get bored with it. I have to work in terms of a what they call it's Pomodoro method. Like, I never remember. It's a Spanish word. And the Pomodoro method is basically work for 28 minutes, work for 25 minutes, break for 5 minutes, work for 25, break for 5, because it knows that I'm like, dangle a shiny object in front of me, and it gets my attention and takes me way off. But if I know I've only got to work for 25 minutes in a stretch, and then I can have that 5-minute break where I can then go and indulge myself in whatever that thing was, or that notification on my phone, or that email that I just saw pop in, or, that thing that came up on my screen and was trying to get me to go and do something else, then I know I can do it. Not everyone's got that kind of method in place, and it's quite a mad way to work until you get used to it. So try to focus on that one thing at a time, rather than going, okay, in this hour-long period, I've got to write 350 words, and I've got to then edit it and get it ready for publishing. Please don't. It's just too hard. Don't try to do everything at once, because you will just get stuck. So you break things up into planning. So let's say, for instance, if you wanted to write an ebook this week, you wanted to write the whole ebook this week, it's completely possible. Because remember, we're not talking about 300 pages here. We're talking about 3, 5, 12 pages tops, really. So you can do this in a week. What you'll start off with is, say, Monday. Monday is your day for planning. And your plan is quite simply sitting there with a piece of paper and a pen and going, this is the subject that I want to get around. This is the way that I want to lay it out. These are the chapters that I think I should have, but you're not writing the story yet. You're not writing the content. You're just going, here's how I kind of think it's going to go and how it's going to work. Then let's say on Tuesday, you're going to actually do the writing of the content. You've given yourself a couple of hours. You already know what your chapters are going to be. You already know where you want to start and how you're going to end it. So now all you need to do is fill that gap. So once you've got the plan in place, your head is clear now just to do the writing, to do the big brain dump of all that information out of your head and into the ebook. And then let's just say Wednesday. Wednesday is going to be the day that you take everything that you wrote on Tuesday that was based on the plan that you made on Monday, and you're going to spend that day editing it. I don't want you on your writing day to go and correct all your spelling errors and grammatical errors. That's just going to get you in the wrong place. When you're writing the information out, you're working out of your right brain, your creative brain. It's just coming out in big mush. Let it out. Let it just flow. Because tomorrow is going to be the day where you're going to do all that correction, all the spelling, all the names, all the grammatical problems, using Grammarly to go and correct everything as you're going, which is a great tool, by the way. Definitely worth the 90 or so bucks I paid for it for a year, especially when you're a terrible typer like I am. But when you're just doing that one thing, you're just letting all those words flow out on Tuesday. It then lets you free to be able to be a grammar Nazi on Wednesday. So you don't have to do all this at once. You don't have to plan it, write it, and edit it all at the same time. You don't have to correct a single thing on Tuesday when you're doing the writing of it. That is so freeing. You can just let it out because it doesn't have to be correct. It doesn't have to even make a heck of a lot of sense, because that's Wednesday's job, to turn it into something that makes sense and then flows nicely. But then you're still only working with words right now. You're not working with the layout. You're not working with pictures. You're not working with necessarily even chapter headings. That's tomorrow's job on Thursday. So when you get to Thursday, you can go, I've now got my plan. It turned into writing. That writing is now being organized and edited into a really neat way. Now I'm going to make this thing look pretty. So this way, you're breaking it all up into a completely different way of doing it. You don't even have to publish it that day. Save that for Friday. Monday, plan out what you want it to do. Basically, where you want it to start and where you want it to end, and what some of the chapters you think might be in the middle of it all. On Tuesday, let that brain dribble just go whoosh and gush out onto the page for you. Don't correct it. Don't edit it. Don't change it. Just let it all out. Wednesday, you can then go through and edit that. So make it all make sense. So as you're reading it, you go, yes, that makes sense. I'll just correct that, change that, move that around. Or maybe that chapter should go down there and move this one up here. Whatever it takes to get it flowing nicely, right? Thursday, make it look pretty. Go into Canva, take all your words, put it into Canva. There are actually ebook templates in Canva, would you believe? So pop on in there, do that, make it look great, save it. And then on Friday, you can go and put that into your sales funnel. Attach it to your website, put it in as a link on something to link to on your social media. You've now got yourself an ebook, and you can probably do this all within, well, you can do your plan within about 30 minutes. You can do your writing within about an hour. You can do your editing within about an hour. You can do your formatting within about an hour if you're a bit slow on Canva, maybe 2. All up, you could do this with less than 5 or 6 hours in a week. You could probably produce an ebook realistically as you get better at this and faster at this at a rate of 1 a week, and do each one in about 2 to 3 hours a week. Imagine that much of your content material floating around the internet, linking back to your website, creating more and more content that's creating credibility around your name. And you start to see how some of these experts out there, the ones you've been reading about and the ones you've been seeing who seem to make this seem really, really easy, you can see why they're now experts, because they're able to do this in a systemized way, because they don't sit there and try and do it all at once, because they know that attention deficit is not just a syndrome that people get who have ADHD. It's all of us have got it. We've all got 100 things all screaming for our attention every single day. Even as I'm looking at this camera, I've got a notification happening on that screen. I've got my phone buzzing and giving me notifications here. I know that my housemate just got home because I can hear him outside. So I go, okay, well, I've got all these things I want to do, but the reality is my attention has to be here and now. So likewise, on Monday, your attention's on planning. Tuesday is on writing. Wednesday, it's on making it all look great. Thursday, it's all about making it look pretty. And then Friday, then you're going to post that thing. One thing though, get a second set of eyes. When you've finally got to the end of it all and you've done all that, get someone who's quite details oriented, I guess, someone who really takes time and is a detailed person to read over what you've done. And the reason you want to do this is because there's even things in the editing process that you will miss. So if we break it down into those different days, if you plan out your content first, let's look at asking the question of what ideas do I want to share? So that's where you go, what is the main crux of what I want to put across? Think of, is there a story that's connecting it? Now, you don't have to write down that story on day one when you're doing your planning. You just go, there is a story here. And the story basically is a process of this person wants to know this thing. They're having trouble finding this thing. I'm their guide, and they meet me out in the desert, and I'm the guide that guides them along to the right place, that helps them to achieve something great, or at least avoid failure in that particular area. And that person, after they've read this thing of mine, is going to be feeling transformed from not knowing anything about this topic to knowing something about it. And so that helps you to go, okay, am I approaching this as a storyteller, or as just as someone who's imparting information? There may not be a story there to tell. That's okay. It doesn't have to be a story. It can just literally be a list of information. That's fine too. But if you're someone who likes to tell a story and appreciates a story to connect things, then that might be something to go, what is the story? Is it a happily ever after? Is it a story of somebody who knows nothing and then knows something? Or is it a story about yourself, how you overcame something and the step-by-step ways that you did that? And in your planning, you might want to name each of your chapters with the main idea in it. So chapter 1 could be how I first got into marketing. And that just put in a couple of dot points. It happened because I got out of university hating what I did. I got involved in a marketing firm who taught me to love marketing. And then I've worked out it was actually really easy to do this because I had the right kind of brain. You haven't written out the story, you've just plotted it out. It's just, even if it's on a whiteboard, whiteboards are great for this kind of thing, by the way. Now, on Tuesday, you're going to write your content. So you're going to start yourself off with each chapter with something relevant, maybe a quote or a statement. Now, I really like this way of doing it. You probably noticed that I started out our presentation today with that quote from the professor from Federation Victoria in Victoria. Federation University in Victoria. That's because what it does, it puts us into a place of expectation, knowing we're going to learn something and we're going to be inspired in some kind of way. So by having a quote at the beginning of each chapter helps to create that receptivity. That's not even a real word. That ability to receive the message that's coming. If you can inspire someone with something which is a really cool quote from a really cool person who's really famous or really well known for what they do, then you've got this beautiful place where people are ready to receive your message in a much better way. Then you'll describe or introduce your topic in one paragraph. Now, this particular technique allows you to go have a summary, a very short 1 or 2 sentence summary at the top of the chapter that explains what you're going to learn in here. Remember, this is mostly about marketing, not about creating a novel. So it's great to be able to break down that information into those really nice little bits and pieces that you can pick up very easily. And then use no more than 3 points to prove or explain your particular approach about this topic. What you'll notice throughout this entire presentation, every single page I have has no more than 3 points on it, because we can only pick up 3 pieces of information at any one time in a short period of time. So within a minute that might take me to get through this slide, I know that you're not going to learn 50 things written down in tiny little words. But you may be able to retain these 3 main points of starting the chapter with a quote or some kind of statement, having a summary at the top of it in your first paragraph, and then using no more than 3 points to deliver that information through to people. 1 point is never enough. 2 is like, oh yeah, that's a pretty sweet spot. But 3 is like going, I don't believe it. I might believe it. I now believe it. Think of it that way. So 3 points really hammers it home that what you're saying has some merit to it. Now, when we go to edit the content, we may want to take some words that we've sort of picked up along the way, some corporate speak, or what I like to call wank words. Excuse my French. You might want to turn some of those things into very simple words. Take what's a very, very complex structure, a lot of words being just thrown in, and reduce down to very simple explanations. That can include reducing each of your sentences to less than 20 words. Once you get beyond 20 words, it becomes that sentence you have to say without you know how you, like when you're reading something else, you have to take breaths in between sentences and between long sentences where you're going on and on and on, you have to take a break. Well, it's the same with the written language. While you're going down and reading, you need to take a pause and go, whew, okay, and now I'm back again. It's actually a thing that was actually written, I believe, into what might have been called the Psalms in the Bible. This is a very ancient technique to take a breath. Now, the Psalms are meant to be read as like poetry, for instance. So if you've never read that particular part of, I'm sounding like a Bible basher, I'm not, I just remember it from Sunday school, that as you're reading through the Psalms or the Song of Solomon, there's a word called Selah, which is basically saying, take a pause to take something in. So it'd be, okay, you've read a block of text, now Selah, take a break, and now start the next bit. And it lets someone who's reading your work read a bit, consider about what they're thinking. Okay, great. And then they can physically continue on to the next paragraph with their eyes. Those breaks between it really helps people to take in the information that you're putting across. And then if you've got some jargon, if you've got a few wank words, you've got some corporate speak in there, it doesn't mean you have to necessarily get rid of it all, as long as you footnote it and you say, if you want to, if you have a little asterisk beside the word, and you've got a glossary at the end that helps people to go, okay, what does that mean? Oh, okay, yep, now I understand it. If you have to have technical words in there because you're doing a technical thing, then make sure you're linking it to a glossary that actually shows what those words do mean. When you're formatting it, you want to then turn your headings into, something consistent. So you can very easily spot throughout what the heading is, where the subheadings are, and start off at larger ones, just like you do in Microsoft Word. When you're writing, you'll start from H1, then you move down to H2, which is a bit small. H3 is a bit smaller again. As you get down to, sections, subsections, and subsections. Add images to some places where you've got a lot of text. This is really important because an image is also providing that breath break for your brain. If it's telling you to go, well, I can take a break here, take in some of this information and feel a little bit more comfortable with the amount that's being delivered for me. If you've got big blocks of text, break it up either with breaks in the paragraphs or with some pictures as well. And you can use lots of stock photos from Shutterstock. You can pay for those, or even Canva has a series of something like 5 million photos you can use, and elements and diagrams and little cartoons and stuff, or icons like I've used on this page here, all come from Canva. You can use those to break things up a bit. And you can add calls to action or references to other material. So if you want people to go, if you're quoting someone, you may want to have something quoted from this particular book. And if it's an ebook, you can actually link it to somewhere else. You can have a hyperlink hidden in your text on an ebook if it's a PDF, for instance. Or you might want to have a call to action, which says, after chapter 1, I'm going to have a call to action. If you'd like to know more about this, please call me on blah, or please click here to ask a question in my online forum or my Facebook group. So you can actually add those calls to action. You don't have to get all the way to the end before you have a sales point. You can actually sell along the way as well, as long as it's adding to what's been just written, not trying to rip someone away and go, okay, well, I've shown you 1 second of my authority, now book my stuff. You want to be able to make sure that it's absolutely appropriate. So try and tie your calls to action into something that you just said in that particular paragraph. And of course, now on Friday, we're publishing, we're actually putting that thing online. So when it comes to publication, there's an EPUB format. Now there are plugins for Microsoft Word that allow you to save in the EPUB format, which will allow you then load up into things like Amazon and Apple iBooks. Now this is for you to publish in an online marketplace where people go to buy books. This can be a really valuable way of you making a bit of money, particularly if you can do a bit of marketing to get yourself known out there as the source of this book. You don't have to charge to have people download your books on Amazon. You can have free books on there as well, but it could just be a nice extra marketplace to chuck your stuff other than just your website, particularly if it's something you're putting away that's not with a cost, it's just a free ebook. But if it's just on your website, or if it's just on social media, or if it's just something you insert into emails and that, a PDF version of your ebook is going to be more than sufficient. It's nice and compressed. It can be nice and colorful, easy to read, and very easy to confirm. You can convert, a question there from Catherine, you can convert Word documents to EPUB formats. There's a particular plugin to Word that will allow you to do that. So you can actually buy that. And there's also services online, both free and paid, that you can copy everything from Word into this online service, and it will convert it into EPUB for you. There's also an Amazon tool I was just reading about earlier today, Amazon EPUB converter or something like that. How to convert, it was like it's an Amazon EPUB builder, and it's part of the Amazon system that they allow you to do that. And it's a free service, which is part of it. Once you've signed up for Amazon, you can then copy and paste your stuff from either a PDF or a Word document straight into this particular tool that's part of Amazon, and it will actually convert it for you right then and there. There's a lot of third-party things that do it, but you'd kind of be mad not to use Amazon's own one, since they've made that for free as well. There's lots of things you can use with paywalls and squeeze pages that allow people to download your stuff. You can sell your books using plugins on your website. So you can use WooCommerce on your WordPress website if you want to sell your own ebook in an EPUB or a PDF format. So you can download it through your website and sell it that more standard way. Just beware that when you do it that way, there's no way of someone not sharing your book with other people, particularly if it's in a PDF. They can just send it via email to whoever they like. Wix and Squarespace and Shopify all have solutions that allow you to sell downloadable products, not just physical products as well. Using squeeze pages or landing pages, we can call them, you can use things like Active Campaign or Teachable, or any of those online course creation softwares like Podia. Another one that comes to mind is Kajabi. All those kind of systems will allow you to create an ebook that you can then bring into either selling as a course or selling as a downloadable asset that you, not even necessarily selling, just having it hosted somewhere. So then people can then collect that through a secret link that they can only get through giving you their email through some kind of nurturing process on your website, such as using things like Active Campaign, there's another one, Convert something. There's just tons of HubSpot does it as well. Lots of these different systems will allow you to create landing pages that you can insert those assets into. And then the promotion, of course, is going to happen mostly through social media, but never undervalue the power of email marketing for this kind of thing too. If you've got someone's email address and they're a client who's dealt with you before, it's a great way of you reaching out and saying, hey, I know we haven't had a chat for a while, but here's a link to my latest ebook. I hope you enjoy it. It can be a really nice way of reinitiating contact with someone because you're giving them something of value that can help them out in their life or their business or their circumstances, completely, without any sort of obligation, I suppose. Or there might be an obligation in there, which is to give you their email address again. But if you've already got their email address, that's not so much a problem. So that brings us to the end of this particular one. This was very much an overview. I'd love to be able to take you through particular systems that I'm using. I'm doing all my ebooks, first of all, in Microsoft Word, and then I take the pieces of the writing and then I insert them into Canva, into my own set of templates that I'm building that are based upon templates that already exist in there. And the reason I use Canva is simply because I can get all the little elements, all the little icons, all the little photos that I want to get, and use them right throughout that ebook really, really easily. And it allows me to move and shape text around and save it in a format or a set of fonts or a set of colors that I've already predetermined as being the ones that I want to use on an ongoing basis. That's how I do it. You may choose a different format. Please just search on Google, ask it if there's a particular service that you're looking for that will do a lot of this for you, that will automatically send it into EPUB. I'm doing all of mine in PDF at the moment, but I've got one that's coming up. This is going to be an EPUB format because I am going to sell this one on Amazon. That might be a whole different matter because there's a lot of words without a lot of pictures, but I'm going to have to learn a whole new technique. And instead of breaking things up with elements like pictures and blobs and shapes, I'm going to have to break it up with chapters and breaks in my paragraphs and all that. So hopefully you can get underway as well and give this a really good crack and try out your first ebook. It's not as scary as you may think it is, because let's face it, doesn't matter where you're at in your business or what you are an expert at, you're still an expert at it as long as you're a couple of steps ahead of the person that you're trying to teach. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. If you want to view this again, it will be available through Business Station's YouTube channel in the next couple of days. I'll have it tonight in my own channel through Dante St James. So you can look up my name. It'll be on YouTube and that will be available for you there too. Thank you and have a great week.